So Fiona, we've talked a bit about what anxiety actually is, and I think that can look really different for the different developmental ages. And so, what does it look like in teenagers and adolescents?
I think we were thinking about, when we were talking earlier, Jess, about what's suddenly required in adolescence. So there are some common developmental tasks that come up in adolescence. And one of the big ones is that they've got more agency, more independence, and so one of their tasks is to start connecting more to people their own age and be less reliant on their parents. And that's a big transition for young people and for parents. And so it's important, it's part of their development, but it's how they can work through that. The other big one that comes up for young teens is that whole thing about finding their own identity. Who am I? And that will naturally mean that they start comparing themselves with others, and looking more inward and looking at themselves from the outside. And so those are really important steps to be taking, but of course it brings up a whole lot of challenges as well. So in adolescence there's also so many changes happening to our bodies, isn't there? And that changes how we think about ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. So we've got to help them kind of navigate that. And we know in our brains there's so much happening. It's almost a bit like what was happening in toddlers, where there's so many new nerves firing and connections that are being made. But it's not yet. This is what happens at puberty as well. But it's not yet sort of organised or nicely put together, so it can feel overwhelming, the amount of thinking and processing that's happening. And I think that sensitivity to connecting with peers is a really big one. So so while bullying can happen across the age range, at the teen stage, there's a lot more personal kind of sensitivity and attack that comes up, because you want to be able to belong to this group that's now separate from your family group. And so being excluded or being different becomes a very painful experience.